All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else? And today's video, we are going to do a gear set review for High Isle for PvP. This is going to be a trial set that I'll be talking about, so there might be some confusion. We're just talking about it for PvP. Now, before I do that, there's not many sets this patch that have really caught my attention. You know, there's not, in my opinion, after like briefly reading the patch notes and going over them and kind of looking at them on the PTS, I haven't looked over everything in depth yet because, I honestly, like, nothing stands out like Plague Break or Dark Convergence or Crimson or any of these like overtuned sets that existed. All these sets, some of them look interesting, but a lot of them have caveats and you know, things that might set them back. But this one's interesting. I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about how it procs. I wanted to talk about what it is in case you consider farming it, and go through what I believe to be the pros and cons before you consider farming it. Because as you guys know, farming's a pain in the ass, and why farm something that you're going to hate? Like, to me, there's nothing more pointless in this game than spending hours farming a set. You try it and you're like, oh, well, that's garbage. So my goal with these videos is to try and help you guys out. So without further ado, we are going to talk about the Coral Riptide set. This is a medium armor set. 2-piece crit chance, 3-piece minor slayer, doesn't matter in PvP, 4-piece weapon and spell damage, 5-piece. The perfected is crit chance and increase your weapon and spell damage by up to 740 based on your missing stamina, reaching the maximum at 33% stamina. So that's really interesting. This is the highest potential weapon damage set in the game. Like, this is, for those of you guys that are looking at this set, this is more than what Old Fury was. And so Old Fury was a problem, and it was adjusted. In my opinion, a little bit too far. But yeah, this when I look at this, I'm like, oh man, you have the potential to have Fury level weapon damage. And Fury at the time was a problem. It got adjusted. Everybody complained about it. And so is this going to be a set that people are going to complain about? I don't think so. And the main reason it is because it's a double barred set. We're gonna talk right here about this. This is a double barred set. I think it has to be on both bars. Like, whatever bar you have this at, that's where you're gonna get the weapon and spell damage. It doesn't transfer over to your other bar. It has to be equipped. So at 100% stamina, you get 0 weapon and spell damage. So it doesn't give you like a base 100 or 200. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, because it's double barred, you oftentimes, really down and dirty for you guys, the go-to for meta setups right now in PvP is a back bar set, a front bar set, a mythic, 1-piece trainee, and a monster set. It allows you to run 2 5-pieces, a mythic, and a monster set. That's typically the most stat dense combination you can have on a build, and that's typically what most people run. You cannot run 2 5 sets, a mythic, and a monster set if you have to double bar a set. So let's say you run Coral Riptide, right? And you're running 5 on the body. Well, you have 3 jewelry left, and then you have your front and back bar 2-piece. And then you have your monster. And so you have to either sacrifice your monster set, your 5-piece bonus, or your mythic if you wear a body 5-piece. And so there's a lot of opportunity cost here that you end up missing out on. Now, this set is strong enough, in my opinion, to where you might want to consider getting rid of a mythic. It really depends on your build, depends on your layout. 740 weapon and spell damage is a lot. Especially when you're 1vxing and you're kiting everything, you're below 700 or 33% stamina quite a bit in fights. And so when we look at this, I want to show you guys like how it starts scaling so you get an idea. Now, when I dodge roll, you're going to look at my stamina bar. When I go into my inventory, wherever my stamina bar it freezes that amount of weapon damage. So we can see how much it's scaling there. You're not going to see the weapon damage dip. So it's wherever the bar was. So if I dodge roll twice, get to 80%, we come down here. If we're at 80% stamina, this is 73% stamina it showed. We get up to 254 weapon and spell damage. So more often than not, you're not going to be topped off at 100% resources. You're probably going to be anywhere from, you know, 0% stamina to like 75 when you're PvPing, typically. And like when you pop a pot, the highest you normally jump up to. You don't normally top yourself off, especially when you're outnumbered 1vxing because you're kiting for your. So the minimum, like the lowest you're gonna have typically in a fight will be like 254 weapon and spell damage, just from fights that I've experienced. If we dodge roll twice or 3 times, we get down to like 50%. Get to 50. 47%. You see we jump up to 585 weapon and spell damage. So if your build is constantly hovering around 50% weapon damage, you're going to have 550 to 600-ish weapon damage for this set. This is close to Clever Alchemist level weapon damage, and when you're outnumbered 1vxing, you're at half resources a lot of the time. This is a lot of damage without having to use a potion. This is more damage than most other 5 pieces. Plus, because it's weapon and spell damage, it doubles as increased healing. And so when you're looking at this, that was part of the reason why Fury was so frustrating back in the day. For those of you guys that didn't play back then, a lot of people were really mad at stamina builds and Fury New Moon users because that was the meta, because people were just stacking weapon damage. They would stack weapon damage, and because they would just stack all this weapon damage, they would hit really hard, but then they'd also be extremely tanky because their heals would go through the roof. And so if you look at this current iteration of Magplar, it's the very same way. You know, you're stacking major and minor sorcery. You're trying to stack as much spell damage as possible, so your Radiating Regeneration, your Honor the Dead, and your Bubble heal you for a large amount. And so the best Magplar right now before the Bubble nerfs is actually as much spell damage as possible, because that makes you as tanky as somebody wearing a defensive set. And so this sort of item has some appeal on classes like that. And so you have to look at it and you go, okay, well, is it worth getting rid of a mythic? Well, if you're running a mythic like Markin, for instance, Markin, it all kind of depends on what you want to do, but 700, depending on where your resources are at, how you're playing, what kind of fights you're engaged in, getting to this much weapon and spell damage might be worth getting rid of a mythic like Markin or a mythic like Death Dealers. You know, obviously those things have utility and you can run 2 5 pieces, but when you start talking about 740 maximum stamina, like if you're a Stam DK or a Magicka DK and you're block casting a lot and like you're getting to low resources and you have to pop an ult, that's when you're going to have this. And so obviously you get 740 at 33% lower resources, so we're going to dodge roll down there just to show you what it does. But yeah, you got current bonus 740, we're maxed out. And so for outnumbered 1vx, you will have a lot of weapon and spell damage, I think, on a lot of specs with this. If you look at Sorks, for instance, this is 33% of your missing stamina, not stamina or magicka. So mag Sorks, maybe they use this because they can use Dark Deal to get magicka back, and they can get themselves use half their magicka or half their stamina and then go offensive, and you can use this as almost like a buff. Yeah, those are all the pros for it. The pros are obviously this is a shit ton of damage. Like this is a lot of damage. The con is it's a lot of damage because you have to get rid of something else in the current state of the game with mythics and everything else. And so I don't think this is going to be, you know, the meta on a lot of different specs. I don't see everybody running Coral Riptide, but I could see a few different types of builds where they're trying to fit in where they decide to fit an arena weapon. Like for instance, if you're a stamina type of class, Vatashran often replaces a lot of mythics you want to run. Like it's similarly weighted in strength. If you compare like what Vatashran is at max stats, it's weapon damage versus stamina and health, or weapon damage and resistances, but you can maneuver other things around to compensate for it. So that's one way to kind of get about not running a mythic. You run like a front bar or a back bar Vatashran's 2H, or like, you know, Masters dual wield or Black Rose dual wield. Like there's still good arena weapons that you can kind of fit with a setup like this. That could be an option. Like if you look at Black Rose dual wield, you get 6% more damage with it. 6% more damage stacked with this, I'd be kind of good. That's all I'm trying to say. Like there's some appeal there. There's definitely some testing that's going to have to be done in open world and everything. But yeah, this is an interesting set. I think this is a very interesting set in PvP. And I know there's a certain YouTuber out there that always talks about Minor Slayer and how this 3-piece is wasted. But if you look at the Perfected, 5-piece perfected, you get 2 different bonuses. You get 657 crit chance, and you get 740 weapon and spell damage. So if you're that one person and that crosses your mind, you can literally take the 5-piece perfected bonus and throw it in a 3-piece for yourself and satisfy your concerns. You'll have crit chance, weapon damage, and then a 740 weapon damage 5-piece. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at when I'm seeing this. It's a very interesting set, something I definitely will be trying to acquire to test out, because yeah, there's some classes, like I said, there's some classes that I think could use this pretty well. Stamina more than Magicka, because their arena weapons are a little bit better. But yeah, it's interesting. That's going to be it. I know I kind of ranted and raved there. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. That it's not just as easy as me saying, hey, this set is going to be run by everybody. It is OP. It is busted. We're not talking about Oaken Soul here, guys. We're talking about Coral Riptide. It's a joke. That's a joke. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very good set. And if Mythics didn't exist, this would be the meta for Stam classes. If Mythics didn't exist. But they do, so it probably won't. That's the end of the video, guys. If you have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching.